Hey y'all, it's Sarah. You can see it is the last week for January that I'm about to start on. I've been a little ahead, so that's been kind of cool. Um, but I think I'm going to change a little something. Um, and I think I'm just going to wing it. I'm still going to be using this stencil that I absolutely love and adore. And I already have ideas for this same stencil for next month too, just to throw out. But I kind of wanted to change things. I've been going with the blues, um, but I think after playing with it in neutral, I think I want to just go ahead and do one spread like this, one kind of kitchen themed spread because I just thought it was cute. I wanted to do one like that before the month was over, so even though it doesn't necessarily match my other pages, I think it fits with the theme. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the things I want to go ahead and do is make some space for my trackers. So for me to do that, I find it easier to take mine out. I don't know if I don't do it for everything, but to do the little trackers, I feel like I need it. So I have been asked questions on this, and I will kind of repeat it a couple of times as I go because I've been questioned on whether or not I'm ruining my markers using a ruler or a straight edge. So far, from what I've seen, I have not. But I'm not using the same marker every single month either. So I don't know. I don't know if it's just that or it's the fact that I'm not bumping a lot of pressure right here straight up against my edge. I'm not pushing over really hard. So I've seen some tips about sticking things. Now, when I'm a crafter and I use a ruler, I keep poster putty stuck to the bottom of my ruler so that it kind of sticks to what I'm working with, especially when I'm using like a craft knife or a razor blade. I don't have one on this one, but I saw a tip where you can attach something underneath it to raise it up some so that it only hits on like this portion. I don't know if I would find that comfortable to use, but I thought I'd throw that out there. I kind of lift mine up that way using the poster putty or the poster tack or whatever the teachers use to stick things on their walls. That's what I use on the bottom of mine. So something like that may lift it up enough for your pens and markers, and that helps it not bleed. But also I have found, I'm going to try to do this without taping it off and masking it. We'll see how it goes. I don't even know exactly what all colors I'm going to use this time. But I did want to start with just something super neutral. This is it's almost a khaki color. And I would share what markers these are sometimes. But it doesn't have, they don't have names on them. And I take things out of the package so I can actually use them pretty easily most of the time. So I'm just marking off the places that I need for my meals, and I'm going to go ahead and mark off a little room for hydration. And maybe I'll get a chance to show you guys how I do my little hydration drops. It's nothing super complicated. I use a stencil because I'm not super consistent. And I know a lot of us have some stencils that we kind of need to get some use out of. So I just run it across just like that. One straight move. You don't want to stop because whenever you stop, that's when it leaves lines. But if you keep it in the best you can in one straight motion, it almost looks like it's printed. You can see that. These markers, I wish I could give credit to who they are. Look how precision that chisel tip is. So I'm going to go ahead and do this page. I did take some of my other trackers off because I decided to put them in something a little more personal that wouldn't necessarily get seen by anybody else or my family because it was spaces that I wanted to track moods and health things. So I did take those off. This is what I've got so far. I'm going to go ahead and do this side and then jump into the cute little kitchen decor. I'm all finished with my sections, and I am so ready to jump into these doodles. I don't know why, I just like the neutrals. I mean, I love color, but I absolutely love the neutral look of this. So I'm starting out on this stencil, this Dollar Tree stencil. I think I'm going to start out with this one. Most of you know that I typically start out, if I'm going to do something chunky, I do it on my weekend because I don't have much of a life on the weekend. So I have more room to play around there. I think I am just going to maybe, I'll do it right about here. I don't want to take up too much of my Friday, but I think I'll start it right about here. You put it wherever is going to be most useful to you. There may be other parts of your week that are a little calmer. And hopefully I don't scare too many people. I go straight in with pen. If I make mistakes, I learn from them. That's kind of where how I've gotten to where I am today. And if I seem distracted, I'm going to tell you why. And you're going to know exactly why I need a planner to keep me from being distracted. I introduced my son to a show that I used to love, and I can hear it in the other room, and I'm trying to listen in at the same time while I'm doing this. Okay, so I just layered those, and I did this in a previous video, so I kind of just whipped through, but I just layered those. Nothing spectacular, but I didn't go all the way up to this point, and I didn't go all the way down to here, and I'm going to try to blend that in a little. So let's see if I can get an even line. If not, there's ways to correct it. If it looks funny, I'll show you. So that was okay. It wasn't too bad. There we go. That's close enough for me. I feel like that works for me. I really should have probably done these in the opposite direction and kicked it out over this way. But I think I'm okay with it. I think I can still work with it. I told you guys before, I don't know all the technicals of shadows and things like that, but I think when the illusion is there, that's good enough. So the next thing I'm going to do, and it's going to go a little weird, and you guys will see me use this shape right here, this rounded off square of this jar a million times probably through the year, because I have come up with so many ideas for this one little soft square. I'm coming up probably, I don't know, maybe 3/4 of an inch up. And this matters. Well, I better start with this one first. I'm going to keep this one even with my chopping board. See, I told you guys I was winging this one. I'm outlining most of what's there. But I'm not going to do the top just yet because I want to put handles and knobs and other things on that. So I went ahead and did just the basic square part. And I think, just to give it a little more detail, I'm using this center one because I feel like that would make it easier for me to line. So this little section right here, I'm lining with the top of that jar and using that curve across and down. And now I'm starting to get a ledge to my jar. And to finish this jar off, I'm bringing this little lid to the pot right here. And trying to line it up. We're going to try to get it even. But before I do even that part, I want to go ahead and do my knob. So right here, I'm going to copy that part and that part. That's all I did. I did it a little lower. I'm not even sure if I got it centered. I think this line is throwing off my ability to tell if I've got it centered, but I think it's okay. And then I came up a little bit with the same pot lid and lined it to these edges just so I could use this curve. Because I didn't want that knob directly on the top. I wanted to kind of make it feel like it had some kind of dimension to it. You don't have to take it that far. You could have done your top way simpler. So I'm going to get a little closer so you can see where I curve these lines in. Hopefully you'll be able to tell. I'm just taking right here, coming around a little bit, right there, coming around a little bit. And then maybe like a super skinny letter J right there. And perhaps a little line there and a little line there. And I think that works. And I'm going to do the exact same. No, I'm not going to do it on this jar. We'll save that. Now I'm coming up a little taller because I want to make a matching set of these little canisters. But I want them to be sized a little different. So I'm going to go ahead and do the top part in between these two guys. And then try to squeeze down here where it would most likely align. And just put the base of it. So now I've got a little bit of a taller canister to match, or in this instance, I'm about to use all of these as their exact shape. So all of the little silverware or spatulas and things like that, I'm going to use these. Let's see, which one do I want to use? I think I'm going to use the spoon first. Since the wooden spoon, I kind of want it in front. And I'm not going to go any further down than right at the edge of my little container. Pretty simple. So at this point, if you're going to add other things, go ahead and add them. If you want to, if you're not going to, you could just put the one spoon. I'm not sure that I want to add the other utensils on this side. I had considered it, but it may take up a lot more room than I expected. No, let's do it. I don't think it'll be a big deal if I take up a lot of room on mine. If you don't, just leave it off if you still need the space. So, I think that works. My line decided to not go. Okay. Now I can come back right about there, if you guys can see. And I'm just getting these curves aligned with these corners and using that. Maybe. I think it's almost time to replace my pen. And I'm going to do it a second time just so it looks like it has an inner rim. Oh, and look what I did. I forgot something there. So let's go back in and fill in that little middle section. Get my rim all the way through. I'm going to add greenery, so any mistakes I make here, or any errors or what have you, I'll be able to kind of hide that when I go in and add some other little details. But I think I'm pretty happy with this. I feel like I could even slide a little something in over here. So let's do that. Let's find something else to throw in over here. I am taking this little section of the apron, the top string, and bringing it maybe to right here. I would have liked to have put this in first, but it's okay. Had I thought it through, that's how I would have done it, but this is okay. So I just used the one rounded part. I need a straight edge or close to it. You could always do this rounded like you did with your jar lid. But I think as small as this little container is, having a straight lid across would be fine. So I've got that part. I think I will add the matching little knob that I have on the other one. I think I'll match the knob. This one's a really good one if you're wanting to do something like this, but you're still a little nervous about coloring a whole lot on your page. This one would probably be a good one to play with, because I'm not really going to have to color a whole lot of these. So that was close enough. I know I move all over the place, guys. It's the only way I can get my hands to function. I try to pay attention. I'm going to do the same thing on the little knob here, though. Just kind of a letter J. Okay, those are pretty cute little canisters. I think now I could go in. I could have rounded off my lid up here a little better. I'm okay with it, though. I think I might add a little detail. I'm going to try to freehand this, so let's hope for the best. It's January. I think I can still get away with snowflakes and things, so that's what I'm going to go with. I think I need a little more arms on that one. Okay, that works for me. The cool thing about these on this particular stencil, they're all a halfway decent size. Like, you could still jot some things down in here if you wanted to. And I'm going to show you that really quick. Can you see this? Let's scoot back a little. Maybe you can see that a little better, but I just put a square in the middle of it just to be able to jot some things in there on a little test run. And it still gives me, for someone that can't write tiny, I struggle. I can draw tiny. I cannot write tiny. I struggle with it. This still gave me plenty of writing space, especially for appointments, things like that. So that's where I stand so far. I'm going to move around and skip to this other side of my spread. Okay, you can see now I'm on the other side of my spread, and I'm going back in with this jar. Very similar to what we did on the other side is what I'm doing on this side. Except for I'm using them both as canisters with lids. So I just went ahead and got that part laid out so I can try to track that their bases line up together. I'm using the grid on here to try to line them up. But you can use this idea anywhere on your page. I'm going to scooch it up just a little. And guess what I did? I overlapped where I probably shouldn't have, but I'm going to run with it. Like, I'm not going to freak out about this, because right here I should have left room, and I could still get away with this, but I should have left room for my lids. It's okay. We're going to be calm about this. So I think I'm going to do the little edge again on these two. So far, I'm already happy with the layout on the other page. I don't know that I'm going to go crazy aggressive on this one as far as putting the designs everywhere. It's a slow week for me, though. I may need to fill in. So I just did the same thing that I did with that other one. Sort of. Trying to, my lines just are never the same. I think that's part of why I'm willing to embarrass myself and share these things, so that I know that so many of us are afraid to ruin our planners. Doing the same thing with the lid. I'm bringing that pot lid down just a little bit. This one too, I'm going to try to center it. And then just bring it down a little. I'm going to go ahead and fill this part in the same way that I showed with the other ones. The coloring of this one, coloring this one in, is the part that I think is fun to share, because this particular one doesn't take a lot of coloring. It's a good low risk set of doodles to try. So you guys can see I'm still working around where I made that mistake on that one lid. If you encounter something like that and you want to correct, you can always use white out. I have my share. But I typically, on something that small, on something this small, one of the things about coloring over that with a lot of the markers, you can write over white out really well with a pen, but sometimes when you go to color over it, it doesn't take it. So I try to do as minimal correction as I can. As a matter of fact, see that little spot? We're not going to worry about it. We'll work it in with some details, and it'll be fine. So this is the kind of thing, that's why I don't edit. I kind of want everybody to know that it's not talent, it's learned things, and I'm still learning things, and I will still make mistakes all the way through as I learn. And I do kind of like to show ways to work around when you make mistakes or hide your mistakes. So some of the details here, these are really, really simple. This goes back to me telling you guys that I have a very, very unsteady hand. That's not an exaggeration. I do well here because my arm is rested in a certain position here on my desk that it helps me, but my hand is really unsteady, and I use that when I want to do it shaky. I lift my hand up some and just let that shakiness put a little ink down. That's it. Nothing like, just a little. I don't know if I need to get closer to show that. When you start adding the details like this, this is a really good way to hide where you might have made mistakes. On this one, all of my little, what's going to be my white ceramic pieces, I think I'll just do some of these little shaky marks around maybe the edges of them like that. On my chopping board here, had you not gotten a good connection right here, now would be a good time to use this to hide where this area and this area didn't meet very well when you curve that around. Just in a few places, I'm adding these little dashes. And you can do that. I've done some of these where I actually try to mimic a wood grain just for fun and things that I'm playing with. I don't know that I would do that on this one, because even if I color this in with my markers, I can still write in this entirely. And let me show you. Even with it fully colored in like this, I could still completely write, actually quite a bit on the chopping board. There's plenty of ways that I can still write on that. So I'm not going to put the wood grain in. I think I'll just leave it. But let's start coloring, because I'm getting excited to do the coloring. And there still may be some drawing details that I'm going to add. And by the way, usually I brag on these really quickly, but if you're wondering what pen I'm using, I find these at Dollar Tree. There's 8 of them in a pack for $1.25. That's probably 90% of the time. That's usually what most of my stuff is done with. So let's start coloring. This is where the information to me gets most important. Actually, I'm going to bring my pen back, because you know what? There is a couple details that I think I want to go ahead and add to, I don't know, my little spatula and stuff here. If you're concerned about trying this freehand, bring back your little utensils and offset them a hair. Something right around there. I'm using the spoon curve, and I'm offsetting it just a hair. And I went down about that far and curved and come back up. And see, I didn't connect those lines super well. So let's see if I can improve how that looks a little. I'm gonna bring a few lines up like this. I think that works. It is close enough for me. I am not striving for perfection, just cute and entertaining most of the time. So that's all I added to those. Now let's get to the coloring. This is actually going to be the simplest one I'll probably ever show. When it comes to coloring, I have said this before, how you do it is probably the biggest part. And usually you want to try, this is a really faint color, so it makes it pretty easy. Any kind of tan color. I could have just as easily, if you're looking for one that's pretty close, if you got brush markers. This one, it's starting to rub off. I think it says 106. So if you're looking for something similar, I don't know if this will help anybody track it down. I don't know if you guys can see. Let me show you why I can't tell you what brands my markers are sometimes. I don't think I can get it to focus. Okay, that is not the name. That is the color scheme of these. The part that starts with the M. Do you see those caricatures? I guess. I don't know. I guess there's our letters. I don't know. But that's what the actual name is. I couldn't tell you if I wanted to. But I love having something like this around. Let's get into using it. I'm going to do my best to keep my strokes even. However, since we're mimicking wood grain on this, it's okay if you see, I think, a little of the overlap where you kind of come across. I feel like it might help your wood grain look some. And you can see, I don't always overlap well. I don't sweat any of that. And I'm going to pull down this side. That's about all I'm doing to it at the moment, because I have to move around in order to keep from bleeding through. You don't want them to get too wet. You don't want the paper to be too wet for too long. So I'm going to do the same thing with pretty much most of this. I'm using this marker, except for the parts that are supposed to look white. I hope you guys can see that my coloring really is not fantastic. Trust the process. The end will get you there. So I do have a tendency to not worry about whether or not I stay in line perfectly. Any print can have the opportunity of overprint, which means it gets out of the line. Newspaper, I worked for the newspaper industry for years. It happens. I don't panic too much about stuff like that. If I don't get all the way up to the line where I still have some white gaps, I will leave those things a lot of times. And then it looks like, by the time it's all said and done, it looks intentional. So on this one here, I think I will do the lid to this canister. I don't know that I'm going to do the one on my little canister. I think I might just keep it a solid white. Over on this one, I'll do just the lid to the canister. Look how cute those little canisters are. So that's where my first stage of coloring would really come in. Now at this point, I've done all those pieces. It's probably fast enough where I can come back now and start adding a little more depth. I don't have to change to a darker color. You don't have to change to a darker color. You don't have to have every shade of every color you own. Just make sure, especially with the Happy Planner, give it time to dry in between those layers. So probably here, where this edge is. And not even all the way down the edge, just in a couple spots, closer to the corners maybe. I just came in, put a little darker. Maybe right here on this little inside thing that I did in my little circle. On the lid to my canisters, I'm going to do something similar. I might come in from this edge because I can't squeeze this tip. I could switch it to the finer one, but I prefer to use this one. Since I can't squeeze it perfectly, I'm just going to do my best and get somewhere along those edges. Maybe right there under the bottom of that knob. And I'm going to switch over. I'm just sliding it back and forth. This is a good time for me to show you really quick where I said I wasn't going to sweat this too much. And I thought maybe I could correct it. So right here, I'm just going to come in and do very similar to what I just did with the chopping board on their edges. I'll throw a few lines down to make that look like it was intentional. No big deal. So now that I did that, this is the other reason why I like using the ballpoint pens. I just did that. Most other pens, if you come in right over them with a marker, you're liable to smear it. So I missed my little details on this one. I guess I need to go back and add those. I might even put one little darker spot there and down the middle of this where it looks like it's catching some highlight there and some highlight there or something. Like I said, I don't know how that entirely works, but it looks like something. So let's put those little details in. How fun are these already? I'm going to put them close together. I wanted to go ahead and share this one, even though it didn't necessarily fit my whole theme. But for those of you that might be wanting to use like an old happy planner or something for a recipe book, these are really cute. So back over here to this one, where my little wooden spoons and things are. Right here around this part where I had to put these lines to try to straighten this out, I think I will just come up with a little color. And maybe right here on this edge where those spoons meet, or those utensils meet, and then maybe down a side somewhere. And I still would do that one more time. After this dries fairly well, I might do that one more time just to darken that hair more even. But even if I leave it at this, it's fun. This is a fun point where you can come in and you can add some greenery if you want to. I've been using the pine needle greenery this entire time. So I still, because I use such a light color, I don't have to freak out about this. So I'm down to the end and I think, oh, it's missing something. So I didn't think it through. I didn't get it entirely correct. It's okay. I'm going to make this greenery work in here. Which I don't think is too wrong anyway, because most greenery, you're going to be able to see something behind it a little bit. So you would still see the tan of the spatula. And if you're wondering what I'm doing, I showed this in another video. I'm literally just flicking randomly on a curved line. There was no rhyme or reason to what I just did. I didn't even do them even. A lot of them that I have seen, they do them all beautifully even, and I cannot get line spacing super even. I'm coming in now with this Java Duplex. They call this one a mild color, but it is not labeled. I don't know what color it is. I'm picking a green. It was close to me. I'm picking it. I'm not even taking this to heavy detail. I literally kind of just used it like a highlighter and went over all of that. I'll let that sit for a minute and I might come in with a darker pen just to throw a little more depth in there. But this is probably where you could come in. I don't know. You could put some wording here. I almost am tempted to leave it in case I wanted to write something here, but I'm going to go ahead and try my hand at the tall skinny fonts. My handwriting, not my favorite skill, but I am learning. So I think that's okay. Now, on the white parts, the things that I was going to leave white, I'm not doing a whole lot to those either. I've got, let me just pull out and show you. I steal the grays out of any pack or collection I have. I take all the grays and I keep them together just for shadowing and things like that. But I got to tell you, if you guys have a pop shelf near you and they have all the cool pen displays and marker displays, they have this color right here. And it is called Light Cool Gray. It's made by Sakura, which I have, this is the first time I've ever had any of their markers. I've had their pens, but it's the first time I've ever had any of their markers. And it's the Koi coloring brush pen. It's light cool gray. And when I tell you I love this thing, I really do, because it is the most faint of colors. I'm telling you, I've got like 5 of them now. I get one anytime my husband asks me if I want to go to Pop Shelf, because we just had one open not all that long ago, and I still get kind of giddy about it. So anywhere where my white items are, I think I'm going to use this one. I'm not using it as my shadow really this time. I guess maybe, but I'm shadowing on the inside of things where I usually go on the outer edge. So I'm shadowing along kind of the inside of some of these items. And it is so faint, I don't even know if you guys can see it, but in person, it is like the perfect hint of something there where it doesn't look like you just forgot to color. So I pick an edge somewhere. And like maybe this edge, I would just drag it down to a point. I didn't even come all the way down. This edge I did. Same thing over here. I'm going to switch back. On one edge, I'll usually pull all the way down. And then that side, I didn't pull all the way down. I don't know. Play with it. See how you like things. And it's such a faint little hint of color. I'm not super big on bragging on one particular marker at all, but I am developing a major love for these. And there's no bleed through with them at all. These are all such faint colors. They're such hints of colors. I'm coming back in one more time. I still want a little depth, I think, on my chopping board. I feel like I could use a little more color. So I'm going to go around that edge, maybe somewhere by the handle. Definitely on these parts. My spoon, this is where I said I still might come in and darken that curve of the spoon. And I kind of used that chisel tip. If you notice, I pulled it down where it was narrower and then almost came straight back up and gave it some width. I think that helped give it that curve that I don't know that I could have necessarily gotten without that nice little chisel. I think I like the color depth to these. I would pop a little more there. And no rhyme or reason how I do that. I just put some color there. They don't even have to be good brush strokes sometimes. These are pretty cute. I do feel like I might want a little color down this edge. I feel like it's a little bland. I'm not sure. Okay, that's a little better, I think. Sometimes you just got to step back and look. Sometimes I have to take a break from something. I've stared at it too long and can't figure out what it needs. So I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I'm going to zoom out so you guys can see so far where I stand. I still have the issue. I'm going to tell you, I did find some pages to get around this, but I still have the issue of figuring out what I'm going to use this week to hide that. Honestly, it's not even really, I don't even think it's super problematic this time. Not sure tropical leaves go super well, but it kind of, I think it kind of doesn't stand out to me as much as I would have thought on such a neutral one. Oh, so I had an idea, and I think I'm finally going to try it. I'm not sure if I like it. Usually, this is my dinner section down here. I don't know if I'm even going to be able to make it fit, but I'm going to try. I'm bringing back out the stencil because I'm going to do the rolling pin. And I think I want to try to get it across here. Oh, that is some sadness. I don't think it's going to fit. I really wanted to fit it across here and do that as my dinner. I'm still kind of obsessed with that idea because look how cute this little guy is. Look at that little rolling pin. I still want to try that at some point. Maybe I should do it up here. Maybe I could do it as like part of my task list. Let's do that. If I infringe on one of these things over here, I'm not going to be too offended. Oh, if I go, if I hang off the page, that's what we'll do. Let's hang it off the page. I'm determined. I am so determined that I keep wanting to use this thing as my, my dinner label. So I'm outlining most of it. To about that stage. Let's get a little closer. So once I get it to that stage, I have to flip it this way since I have no continuity of lines at all. When I try to freehand, I'm going to flip it there. And while I have that there, I think I'm just going to go ahead and do that line. You wouldn't have to. I'm doing that so that I don't actually have to color this whole thing in. And I'm going to connect the end there. And just use a straight edge to kind of straighten this the rest of the way off of my page. But you would do the same thing, just opposite on the other side. I think I showed doing the rolling pin already. But I keep wanting to do it. Specific to my dinner area here. Now I'm just coming in, doing my little crazy, shaky lines. Maybe across there. I'm doing them right here especially since I didn't connect those lines really great. So I feel like it hides a little bit. You might could do some across here. Like along the bottom. This one's pretty easy to color in as well. That's why I wasn't too concerned about the fact that I overlapped it on that. Since I knew I was coloring right across here with the same color. And I'm not even going to fill in the white part. I'll do it the same way I did the other white items with this really faint gray, this cool gray, maybe along these edges a bit. I'm not even sure if I'm going to put a shadow on these like I usually do. Like I usually use the gray highlighters to do an outside shadow. I'm not even sure they're necessary on any of this one. But that did end up working out fairly nicely because it lined up where I actually have a line to write dinner across here. So that's pretty much where I stand on the bigger designs for this page. I want to get down to a couple other things. I know it's already long, but there's a couple other things I wanted to share of where they come from because I'm not using stickers. I'm just using some stencil shapes instead. Just these are, I got them on Amazon. It was a really nice little collection for like $6. Mostly I wanted them for things like this. The squares, I very seldom use most of this other stuff. But I do like the squares and things like that since I don't use a lot of stickers. Although, for Christmas, I did get stickers. My husband got me some stickers that I think I'm going to try to start incorporating in with these. So, typically, I think about places where I know I'm going to need a couple spots. Just for some things that I know can be reoccurring. So, that's all I do. I come in later, like with this one. I did get asked about the shadows where it looks like I have stickers there. I'm going to use this same gray, and I'm not even sure if it's going to be dark enough. And usually I will run it barely from one end to the other. And I don't know, it's so faint. Can you see that? I didn't run it all the way. I just ran it from like, I started it part of the way and stopped it part of the way. That's the fastest way to do it. Sometimes I take it further and go around and those kind of things. But typically that's kind of the fastest way for me to do that. When it comes to my hydration that I've been asked about, once again, in the stencil things like these, a lot of these have something. If you don't have a teardrop, like this one has a teardrop. This is not the one I use, but a lot of these have things like that. And if you don't happen to have one that specifically has like that little teardrop shape, look at things like flower petals or leaves or things like that that might be fairly similar. If you look, there's some leaves on this one that are very tear-like shape, or try to freehand it and do it in like random little drops. I use an architecture one that's a hair smaller when I do mine. I think the hardest part I have with doing the hydration areas is aligning them. And I still just eyeball it. I don't take the time to measure it out. That's too much time for me. I usually spend way less time. If I'm doing a spread by myself and not sharing it with anybody, I spend way less time than what it takes me to sit and show and explain. So I don't do a lot of measuring a lot of times. I don't make it that stressful for me because this was supposed to be fun and entertaining. My next step, I don't know that I'll add much, and if I do, it's going to be repeat elements that we've seen for the rest of the month. But this was something that I wanted to show, that you didn't have to do a lot of coloring to feel like you've got, you know, a playful page, a doodled page, something that you put a little work or effort into of your own. It doesn't really take that much. This is a stage where I come in and I might add a little more of my little jaggedy lines around the edges to things. My little bumpy lines. But I feel like I wanted to share this one as a plain one for another reason as well. In case you're looking for other things to add to your planners or other ways to use old planners. I have started on a recipe book. I have not found my winning layout for the recipes, recycling pages like this to start sharing them with anybody, but I wanted to at least share some elements. So if you've already got that part down pat and you've already started your own personal recipe book at home for things, it might give you some ideas of ways to really dress up some stencils you may have. If you like this Dollar Tree stencil, I promise through the rest of the year, I will help you find other ways to use it other than just as kitchen things and winter things, because I've played with this thing so much that I have so many ideas all the time with, as strange as it seems, something like this. So that's all I've got. I'm going to finish out adding my little boxes like this. I've got to look at my schedule so I know where I need to add boxes, and then I'll pop back and show you what my end result is. I've got to make sure that the Weather Channel has my weather out this far out when I'm this far ahead. But I'll pop back on just a second and show you what I finished with, and maybe it'll give you a little idea to try little bits or pieces or things, or I try to touch in on questions that I've had. I try to remember those things, but I get so excited. Okay, let me finish this. I'm all finished now, at least for the moment, until I really start putting my plans and things down. But I did find a way to keep the tropical leaves. I don't think they're that crazy there. I just kind of worked another jar or canister around them and just left them there, just so I could remember maybe what I had covered up all the other times. But this is my end result. I've got my hydration in. I've gotten some things in that I know I need for sure. Everything else I add as I go. It's not a big deal for me to come in and draw something else if I need to fill in. I will probably start writing my plans in, and by the time you see the finished picture, it might be a hair different, but not by much. Not with anything that I haven't already shown or shared. And just so you know, my little weather things, they're all freehanded. That's why none of the clouds are the same. Nothing is the same. They're all freehanded. They have stencils for that, guys. I have a hard time getting my pen in some of the stencils for that, so I just freehand it. But I do find it handy. I've mentioned that before. For instance, I'm supposed to go do something with a friend Tuesday, and I realize that it is going to be raining that day. That's usually it's usually when she and I will pick to do manicure days. And I know that by the time I get to this particular week and I see that, I'm going to be like, maybe I can get her to do it a different day. But that's it. That's all I've got. I hope it gave you some ideas. I actually like how this turned out. I think it's pretty cute. I do like all the neutral colors. I wasn't sure how I was going to like that in my planner, but I absolutely love it. I think I'm going to sit down, finish this up, and I'm already ready for February. I have got like a whole bunch of ideas. Just to give you a sneak peek, I'm going to reach over if you're interested, because I told you that I had lots of uses for these jars this year, this stencil this year. So I'm definitely going to get my money's worth out of this one little stencil, but I have all kinds of ideas for February. These are just some of the things that I've been playing with. So I'm ready to dive into it. I've already been playing with the ideas, but here is my last week of January, and I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me, playing with a few ideas. You can see I barely put any color on this, but it still feels like it's a page that's got some color to it. So that's all. I plan to hang out again soon. Bye, y'all.